Clara Jensen, the idealized ghost of Caleb Thorne's past, set fire to my new home. I didn't call him. He was at a joint task force training exercise, unreachable. But one phone call from her, and Caleb was taking emergency leave to fly back, ready to demand I drop the charges and refuse to testify on her behalf. "She's so kind. She would never do this intentionally," he said, his voice cold. "Eleanor, don't be so aggressive." I, however, calmly pulled something from my bag. And in that moment, the ghost of his past and my husband both lost their minds. When Major Caleb Thorne rushed back from the joint military exercise on an emergency transport flight, he didn't ask if I was hurt. He slammed a drafted statement refusing to press charges onto the table at the police precinct. "Clara is one of the kindest people I know," he said icily. "She would never do this on purpose. Eleanor, stop being so aggressive." I looked at him, then at Clara Jensen, whom he was shielding behind him. I slowly took a clear evidence bag from my purse. Inside was an ultrasound report, its edges singed black by smoke, and a small baby locket, misshapen by the heat. Clara's sobbing choked in her throat. The color drained from Caleb's face. I was at the hospital for my second prenatal checkup when I got the call from my neighbor. The nurse had just handed me the report, smiling. 9 weeks. The heartbeat is strong. Just try not to overwork yourself." I was touching my stomach, a smile not yet reaching my lips, when my phone vibrated. On the other end, Mrs. Gable from the floor above me was trembling. "Eleanor, you need to come home. Your new condo is on fire." It started in the nursery. My mind went blank. The condo was what I'd received after the old house my mother left me was bought out for redevelopment. Caleb had said the base was too far from the city to manage the renovations, so I had spent 3 years overseeing it all myself. I chose the paint. I measured for the furniture. I even secretly ordered and installed the cloud-shaped lamp in the nursery after I found out I was pregnant. My plan was to wait until Caleb's exercise was over, take him to the new condo, and tell him, "You're going to be a father." But when I arrived, fire trucks were already parked downstairs. Thick smoke billowed from the 17th floor windows, so black it looked like it would swallow the entire building. Mrs. Gable grabbed me. "Eleanor, don't go up there. The firefighters are inside." I saw a white canvas tote bag tossed by the flower bed downstairs. It was Clara's. I recognized it. She had come to the base housing complex last month to see Caleb and accidentally left it in my car. Inside, there was a photo of her and Caleb from high school. When I returned it, she had smiled and said, "Oh, Ellie, don't get the wrong idea. Caleb's just sentimental. He's not like that with everyone." Now, that same bag lay covered in ash at the foot of the burning building. My hands went cold. A firefighter held me back, but I heard a muffled thud from upstairs. It came from the direction of the master bedroom. In the bottom of the master bedroom closet was my mother's heirloom locket and the new baby locket I had just bought. Engraved on it were 4 words: peace and joy. I don't know where the strength came from, but I pushed past the barricade and ran into the building. Someone shouted my name from behind, but I didn't look back. The elevators were out. I ran up the fire escape. The higher I went, the thicker the smoke became, choking me, my eyes streaming with tears. On the 17th floor, the door had been forced open. The living room was charred black. Only half of our wedding portrait on the wall remained. The half with Caleb's face was burned away, leaving only mine. It looked like a joke. The nursery was the worst of it. The cloud lamp had fallen to the floor, the frame of the crib was blackened, and the air was thick with the smell of ruin. I rushed into the master bedroom, knelt before the closet, covered my mouth and nose with a damp towel, and dragged out the small safe box. Its metal shell was so hot it blistered my palms. I heard a firefighter yell, "There's someone in here! Get out now!" The next second, a piece of the plaster ceiling crashed down, hitting my shoulder. I fell to the floor, and a sharp, violent cramp seized my abdomen. It felt like an icy hand was squeezing me, mercilessly. I curled around my stomach, my throat raw with the taste of smoke. When the firefighters dragged me out, I was clutching the safe box for dear life. When I got to the hospital, my best friend Maya was already waiting at the ER entrance. She was an ER nurse. Seeing me covered in soot, her eyes turned red. "Eleanor, are you insane? You ran into a fire while you were pregnant?" I opened my mouth, but only one question came out. "The baby?" She didn't answer. The lights in the emergency room were blindingly white. They gave me oxygen, drew blood, and performed an ultrasound. Lying on the examination table, I was still clutching the baby locket I had pulled from the safe. It was melted beyond recognition. Miss Vance, the doctor said, pulling off his gloves, his voice gentle. There's no heartbeat. The words fell, and I couldn't even cry. Beside me, Maya covered her mouth, tears splashing onto my chart. I stared at the ceiling, watching the lights blur into halos. My phone was beside the bed. I called Caleb. No answer. I sent a text. The new condo is on fire. I'm at the hospital. 17 minutes later, he replied with 6 words. In the middle of an exercise, don't be dramatic. I looked at those 6 words and suddenly let out a small, hollow laugh. Maya was shaking with rage. What does he mean? You had a miscarriage. His wife almost died in that fire, and he tells you not to be dramatic? I turned the phone face down on the bed. He's in a joint task force exercise. He can't just come home. I had said that sentence so many times. When Caleb's mother was sick, he couldn't come back, so I stayed by her bedside. When a pipe burst in our base housing, he couldn't come back, so I found a plumber. When I was pregnant and collapsed from morning sickness, he couldn't come back, so I took a taxi to the hospital myself. Every time, I told myself, he's a soldier, he has a mission, I can't be a burden. But that night, at 11 p.m., Clara Jensen made one phone call to him. The next morning, Caleb was back, arriving on the first available flight. Not for me. He came back because Clara was at the precinct crying, Caleb, I'm so scared. Your wife is going to ruin me. I sat on my hospital bed, an IV in my hand, watching the screen recording Maya showed me. In the video, Clara was wearing a white dress, a smudge of soot on her face, weeping as if she would collapse at any moment. Caleb, still in his combat uniform, rushed straight from the airbase and immediately pulled her into his arms. Someone asked, Major Thorne, your wife is at the hospital too. Aren't you going to see her first? He frowned. Clara is emotionally unstable. I'll handle this first. I turned off the video. Outside the window, the sun was rising. My baby was gone. My new home was gone. And the marriage I once thought was indestructible had been burned to ash. Maya asked quietly, Eleanor, are you going to try calling him again? I placed the scorched locket into an evidence bag, along with the ultrasound report. No. I pulled the IV from my arm and stood up. Since he's back, I'll go see him myself. In the mediation room at the precinct, Clara was crying as if she were the victim. She sat next to Caleb, his jacket draped over her shoulders, her fingers clutching his sleeve. When she saw me, she stood up immediately, her tears falling even faster. Eleanor, I'm so sorry, I really didn't mean for it to happen. Caleb looked up at me. His gaze paused on my pale face for a second, then fell to the gauze wrapped around my hand. But he didn't ask if it hurt. He just said, Why did you leave the hospital? I pulled out a chair and sat down. I came to see how you plan to handle the fact that my home was burned down. His brow furrowed. Eleanor, don't put it like that. Clara is terrified. I looked at Clara. Her eyes were red, her voice soft and trembling. Eleanor, I just heard you weren't feeling well and wanted to see if there was anything I could do to help at the new place. I bought some scented candles to make it nice for you. I don't know how the candle fell over. She almost let the word pregnant slip. My eyes went cold. Caleb didn't catch it. He pushed a document toward me. This is an affidavit of non-prosecution. I glanced down. Caleb Thorne's name was already signed on it, the handwriting sharp and decisive, just like him, always making decisions for others. Who gave you the right to sign this? I asked. Caleb's face darkened. I'm your husband. So? It's marital property. I have the right to handle it. I laughed. That condo was acquired entirely through an exchange of my mother's inheritance. The deed is in my name only. The renovation costs were paid for mostly with my salary and the money my mother left me. How much did you contribute, Caleb? 1 chandelier for the living room, which you paid for with the wrong card and had me transfer the money back to you. A police officer cleared his throat. Mr. Thorne, we still need to verify the ownership of the property. If it is indeed Miss Vance's personal property, any statement declining to press charges requires her signature. Caleb was agitated. Her emotions are running high. I signed it on her behalf for now. I looked at him. My emotions are running high? He lowered his voice. Eleanor, Clara's not a bad person. Her father helped my family years ago, and she's had a tough life. She just wanted to see the condo and accidentally started a fire. Do you really need to send her to jail for that? I didn't speak. Clara shook her head, crying. Caleb, don't blame Eleanor. It's all my fault. It's only natural she hates me. After all, she's always thought I was the one you truly cared about. With that, the room fell silent for a moment. Caleb's head snapped toward me. What have you been saying to her? What do you think I've been saying? I retorted. His eyes were filled with exhaustion and blame. Eleanor, I'm already exhausted. I have a mountain of things to deal with back at the base. Can you please not pick a time like this to be jealous? Jealous? My home was burned down, my child was gone, and he called me jealous. Maya, who was standing at the door, looked ready to storm in, but she was held back by Rebecca Davies. Rebecca was a friend of my mother's and my lawyer. I had sent her all the information before coming to the precinct. She hadn't come in, just waited outside for my signal. I looked at Caleb. Did you take an emergency flight back for me? He paused. Clara immediately bowed her head. Caleb said, Clara said you were going to press charges to the fullest extent. She was having a panic attack. I was worried things would escalate and affect both parties. Both parties? You're both important people to me. I nodded slowly. So, I'm just one of the parties. Caleb's face was grim. Eleanor, do you have to talk like this? I didn't answer. Instead, I took a clear evidence bag from my purse and placed it on the table. Inside was the baby locket, melted and deformed. When Clara saw it, her crying hitched for a second. Caleb frowned. What's this? I took out another document, an ultrasound report. The corners were blackened by smoke, the paper stained with blood from my hand. I pushed it in front of him. This is what I risked my life to save from the fire yesterday. Caleb looked down. His eyes first scanned the words pregnancy, 9 weeks, then landed on the final line of the diagnosis, no fetal heartbeat. He froze completely. Clara shot up from her chair, which scraped harshly against the floor. Impossible. Her voice was shrill, nothing like the gentle person from moments before. How could you be pregnant? Caleb's head whipped around to look at her. In that instant, he finally heard what she was really saying. I leaned back in my chair. The wound on my palm had split open again, blood seeping through the gauze, but I had never felt so calm. Clara, you didn't just burn down my house. I looked at Caleb. You burned down your child's new home. The blood drained from Caleb's face, inch by inch. He reached for the report, but I pressed my hand down on the evidence bag. Don't touch it. His voice was hoarse. Eleanor. Caleb, I interrupted. I do not recognize the statement you signed. No one in the room spoke. Even Clara looked as if she'd been strangled. I turned to the officer. I demand that Clara Jensen be prosecuted for arson to the full extent of the law. I request a formal injury assessment. I request the full fire marshal's report, the building's security footage, the parking garage records, and the access logs from my smart lock. I paused. Furthermore, I will be submitting a formal report to your commanding officer. Caleb stared at me, his eyes wide. For the first time, he looked panicked. I picked up the drafted statement he had signed and, in front of him, tore it in half. The paper fluttered onto the table. Clara Jensen finally stopped crying. Caleb caught up to me just as I reached the precinct exit. He grabbed my wrist. I winced in pain, and he immediately let go. The blood seeping through the gauze made his fingers freeze in midair. What happened to your hand? I looked at him and found it funny. You're only asking now? His Adam's apple bobbed. I didn't know you were pregnant. I was going to tell you, I said. In that new home. A tremor ran through his eyes. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Did you ever give me a chance? I shot back. For the past 2 months, all his time had been given to the exercise and to Clara. When I was so sick from morning sickness I couldn't eat, I called him, and he said, Clara's having a bad day, I'll be back late. At my first prenatal appointment, the doctor asked where my husband was, and I said, he's busy. When Clara saw me buying baby supplies, she smiled and asked, What are these for, Eleanor? I thought you and Caleb weren't planning on having kids yet. After that day, strange packages started arriving at the new condo. A broken glass bottle, an anonymous card that said, You don't deserve this. A bouquet of dried, dead white roses. I didn't tell Caleb. Not because I was tolerating it, but because from that day forward, I started collecting evidence. Caleb was silent for a long time before saying quietly, Eleanor, Clara was probably just scared of losing me. I laughed out loud. So she gets to burn down my house? He closed his eyes. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? I took a step forward, staring at him. When you came back, the first thing you did wasn't to ask if I was hurt. It wasn't to ask how the fire started. It wasn't to ask why my baby was gone. The first thing you did was draft a statement to drop the charges for her. Caleb's face was deathly pale. Clara ran out from behind him, crying, Caleb, I really didn't know she was pregnant. If I had known, I would never have gone in there. Her words betrayed her again. I turned to look at her. You said the candle fell over by accident. Now you're saying you went inside? Clara's pupils constricted. Caleb looked at her too. She stammered, I meant I went inside to look at the condo. Good, I nodded. Then let's wait for the smart lock records. A police officer came out and informed us we needed to give supplementary statements. Rebecca Davies walked to my side and draped a coat over my shoulders. I have a copy of the deed, premarital asset, your personal property. I took the coat. Hearing those words, Caleb's face grew even darker. When did you hire a lawyer? The moment you signed that statement for Clara. He flinched as if he'd been struck. Rebecca looked at him, her tone calm. Major Thorne, Miss Vance is a person of full legal capacity. Her property and her physical well-being do not require anyone else to dispose of them on her behalf. Caleb said nothing. I went back into the interrogation room. The officer asked me if anything unusual had happened before the fire. I handed him my phone. It contained all the text messages Clara had sent me over the past month. Caleb doesn't actually like kids, he's just too nice to tell you. That new condo is decorated so beautifully. It's a shame he once promised me that our future home would be designed just the way I like it. If that place got dirty, do you think he would still want to live there? I never replied to a single one, but I screenshotted every single one and saved them to the cloud. After reading them, the officer's expression turned serious. Rebecca added, there are security cameras in the 17th floor elevator lobby and in the parking garage. Miss Vance's condo has a smart lock, and we can pull the usage records for temporary passcodes from the back end. During the renovation, cameras were also installed in the common areas to prevent workers from swapping materials. While the fire may have damaged the devices, there might be backups in the cloud. Caleb stood outside the door, hearing every word. He looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. He used to say I was gentle and accommodating, that I never made things difficult for anyone. He didn't know that not fighting back doesn't mean you don't have boundaries, that not speaking up doesn't mean you don't have evidence. That night, the smart lock company sent the back-end records. 47 minutes before the fire broke out, someone had used a temporary passcode to enter the condo. That temporary passcode had been sent to Clara by Caleb. I stared at the record, my fingers slowly clenching into a fist. Caleb saw it too. He said in a low voice, I only gave her the code once, so she could get some files I left there. What files? He couldn't answer, because there were no files of his in the new condo. He had barely even stayed there. Clara tearfully explained, I just wanted to go in and see it. When I saw the nursery, I thought Eleanor was doing it to provoke me. Provoke you how? I asked. She bit her lip. To provoke me because I can't have children. The air went still. It was the first time she had laid her own wound bare. Caleb's resolve softened instantly. Before he could speak, I put my hospital reports back in my bag. Your inability to conceive doesn't give you the right to burn someone else's child. Clara's face went white. Caleb closed his eyes. Eleanor, she's just been through a lot of trauma. So have I. I looked at him. Thanks to you both. The day I was discharged from the hospital, I didn't go back to the base housing. Maya helped me pack a few things, and Rebecca drove me to a serviced apartment. Caleb was waiting for me at the hospital entrance. He had changed into his dress uniform, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. I'll take you home. I don't have a home anymore, I said. His jaw tightened. The house on base is still there. That's your home, not mine. I walked around him. He followed me, his voice low. Eleanor, we need to talk. I stopped, took out my phone, and, in front of him, disabled our shared location tracking. Then I unmuted the 3 family group chats for his mother, his aunt, and his cousin, and left each one. Caleb saw the screen and his face changed. What are you doing? Ending my unpaid labor. For the past 3 years, while Caleb was away, it was the default that I handled all of his family's affairs. His mother's high blood pressure appointments, I was there. His relatives visiting the city, I arranged lodging. When Clara had a late-night emotional breakdown, it was Caleb who asked me to deliver her medication. You're my wife, he'd said. Help me take care of the people around me. I did. I took care of them until they all forgot I wasn't the Thorne family's maid. Caleb's voice grew heavy. This isn't the time to be petty. I'm not being petty. I took a retainer agreement from my bag. Rebecca will handle the fire compensation and all matters related to the divorce. His head snapped up. Divorce? I nodded. Yes. Caleb looked as if he didn't understand. Just because of this? I looked at him. This? My child is gone. My home is burned. He shielded the arsonist and tried to force me to forgive her. And in your mouth, it's just this? I didn't say another word. I turned and got into the car. As the door closed, I saw him standing there, a look of genuine bewilderment on his face for the first time. Maya drove, fuming. Does he think you'll never leave? How can he be so arrogant? I leaned against the window, my hand on my lower abdomen. It was empty now. But the emptiness wasn't just pain anymore. Something cold and hard was growing in its place. After arriving at the apartment, I immediately organized all my files. Hospital records, the fetal demise report, photos of the fire, the lock records, Clara's texts, a copy of the statement Caleb signed. Rebecca said the evidence chain was missing 2 links, the source of the accelerant and proof of Clara's premeditated intent. I nodded. The parking garage camera might show what she brought in her car, and there's a convenience store at the complex entrance. Rebecca glanced at me. You're calmer than I expected. I placed the scorched locket into a small box. If I weren't calm, they would call me hysterical. I knew that script all too well. When Clara cried, she was fragile. When I cried, I was being unreasonable. When Clara had a breakdown, it was trauma. When I had a breakdown, I was being aggressive. So I wouldn't cry. I would make every tear a piece of evidence. At 8 p.m., Caleb's mother called. I didn't answer. She called 5 more times, then sent a voice message. Eleanor, Mom knows you've been wronged. But Caleb's work is special. As a military spouse, you have to look at the bigger picture. That girl, Clara, she's had a pitiful life. She really didn't mean it. Withdraw the complaint for now. When Caleb's exercise is over, we'll have him make it up to you properly. I listened, then forwarded the message to Rebecca. Rebecca replied, save. Can be used later to prove the Thorne family applied continuous pressure. At 9 p.m., Caleb texted me, where are you staying? I didn't reply. He sent another, why did you turn off your location? I looked at the message and thought of all the times he had come home late, and I could see his location dot on the map. At the hospital, outside Clara's apartment, at a therapy center, by the river late at night. He'd always explained, Clara's unstable, I'm worried she'll do something. And time after time, I believed him. Now it was his turn not to see me, and he was getting anxious. At 10:30 p.m., the security guard at my old base housing called. Miss Vance? Major Thorne has been standing downstairs for over an hour. He says he can't reach you. Please tell him I've moved out, I said. The guard paused. Are you all right? I'm fine, I said. After hanging up, I pulled back the curtain. The city lights were bright. For the first time, I felt that without Caleb Thorne, the world was not just different, but quiet. The next morning, Caleb's mother went straight to the hospital. When she couldn't find me, she stormed up to Maya's nursing station. Where have you hidden Eleanor? As a military wife, instead of protecting her husband, she's trying to sue someone. Has she gone mad? Maya's face was cold. Ma'am, this is a hospital. If you continue to cause a disturbance, I will call security. Caleb's mother slammed her hand on the counter. I'm her mother-in-law. Maya slapped a copy of my medical chart on the counter. Then did you know she had a miscarriage? His mother froze. A few seconds later, her voice softened. Well, you can't blame that entirely on Clara. The first trimester is always unstable. Maya laughed in disbelief. Smoke inhalation, injuries from a fall, and acute stress. And you say it's not entirely her fault? Caleb's mother had nothing to say, but half an hour later, she sent me a text. Eleanor, a woman has to look forward. You can have other children. Caleb only gets one career. I stared at the message, then screenshotted it, saved it, and forwarded it to Rebecca. I finally understood. It wasn't that they didn't know I was in pain. They just felt my pain wasn't as important as Caleb's career. Caleb's mother invited me to the old Thorne family house for dinner. I wasn't going to go, but Rebecca advised, you can go, but don't go alone. Take a recording device and inform them beforehand that you'll be recording the conversation. So I went. The Thorne house was brightly lit. As soon as I walked in, I saw Caleb on the living room sofa. Clara was there too. She was wearing a pale blue sweater, her face ashen, looking like a gust of wind could knock her over. Caleb's mother, seated in the main armchair, sighed when she saw me. Eleanor, you're finally here. I scanned the room. It was just Caleb and his mother. This wasn't a family dinner, it was an ambush. Caleb stood up. Eleanor, I didn't know Clara would be here. Clara immediately rose. Eleanor, I can leave. Caleb's mother just said it would be good for everyone to talk things out. I didn't look at her. I took out my phone and placed it on the table. I will be recording this conversation. His mother's expression flickered. We're family. Why record a family conversation? To prevent anyone from later claiming I was being hysterical, I said. The living room fell silent. Caleb looked at me, his expression complex. Before, whenever I came to the Thorne house, the first thing I did was go to the kitchen. His mother liked bland food, and Caleb was on a strict diet for his training. I remembered everyone's preferences. Today I sat down. I didn't go to the kitchen. Finally, Caleb's mother couldn't stand it anymore. Eleanor, Clara knows she was wrong. She hasn't been able to eat or sleep for days. She almost did something drastic. You're a woman too. Why do you have to push her to her death? Did I force her to commit arson? I asked. His mother frowned. You can't put it like that. Clara made a mistake, but you're not permanently hurt, are you? The condo can be compensated. As for the baby, you can only say it wasn't meant to be. I looked at her. If your daughter was 9 weeks pregnant and someone burned down her house, causing her to miscarry from smoke inhalation, would you also say it wasn't meant to be? Her aunt's face stiffened. Caleb muttered, Eleanor, you're being so aggressive now. I smiled. The fire must have damaged my throat. Caleb said in a low voice, Eleanor, don't be like this. I looked at him. Like what? Not proper? Not obedient? Not as easy to manage as before? His face turned pale. Caleb's mother slammed her teacup down. Eleanor Vance, don't you forget you are a military wife? Caleb's life hasn't been easy. You can't ruin him over a temporary grievance. Speaking of not easy, I nodded. I brought something. I took a ledger out of my bag. A thick one. I opened it. The first page detailed the Thorne family's expenses over the last 3 years of our marriage. Caleb's mother's hospital deposit, $2,800. Thorne family property taxes, $3,600. Thorne family home renovation, $12,000. Clara Jensen's therapy fees, $7,400. Clara Jensen's rent, cater, voix, cents. Every item had a corresponding bank transfer record. The faces in the room slowly changed. His mother said sharply, Why are you keeping track of this? We're family, you can't be so calculating. Yes, I said, flipping to the last page. I used to think family shouldn't be calculating either. I placed the renovation invoice for the new condo on the table. Total, $186,000. Amount paid by Caleb Thorne, $328. Next to it, a note. For living room chandelier, later reimbursed by Eleanor Vance. The room fell into a suffocating, dead silence. Caleb's face was a mask of utter humiliation. His mother was incredulous. Caleb, you didn't even help pay for the renovations? Caleb said stonily, I put most of my salary into my mother's care fund and Clara's treatment. I looked at his mother. So not only am I taking care of the Thorne family, but I've also been indirectly supporting Clara for you. Clara's face went white. Eleanor, how can you say that? Caleb helped me willingly. I produced another record. This was charged to my supplementary credit card, which Caleb took to pay for your therapy sessions. He told me it was for the family of a fellow soldier in an emergency. Clara's lips trembled. Caleb stared at me. When did you find out? The first time I received the transaction alert. Then why didn't you ask me? I said calmly. Because back then, I still wanted to leave you with some dignity. He looked as if he'd been slapped. His mother couldn't sit still any longer. Let's talk about the money later. The most important thing now is to withdraw the complaint. I closed the ledger. Withdrawing the complaint is impossible. Are you trying to drive Clara to her death? The law won't kill her. Her own actions will. Suddenly, Clara collapsed into her chair, burying her face in her hands. She sobbed. Eleanor, I'm begging you. I'll do anything you want. I'll beg your baby for forgiveness. Just don't ruin Caleb. Caleb instinctively moved to help her. I watched his hand. And he stopped. For the first time, he didn't immediately rush to her side. Clara froze, then began to cry even harder. Just then, my phone vibrated. A text from Rebecca. Preliminary fire report is out. Accelerant residue detected at the point of origin, inconsistent with an overturned candle. I looked up at Clara, still slumped over, weeping a river of tears. I turned my phone screen toward her. Clara, every second you spend sobbing right now feels like a rehearsal for your courtroom performance. When she saw the message, the blood drained from her face. Caleb saw it too. This time, he didn't say, she didn't mean it. 3 days later, Clara asked to meet. She chose a coffee shop downtown. She texted me, Eleanor, I want to talk to you alone. Please, give me one last chance. I forwarded the message to Rebecca, who replied, Public place is fine. Do not accept any private settlement. Do not get into an emotional conflict. I'll be at the next table. At 3 p.m., I arrived on time. Clara was already at a window seat. She wasn't wearing a white dress today, but a black coat, her makeup perfectly applied. When she saw me, she didn't cry. Instead, she smiled. Eleanor, you really are more tenacious than I thought. I sat down and placed my phone on the table. Go on. She glanced at the phone. Recording? It's a public place. You can record too. She sneered. You've learned to be smart. I didn't reply. The waiter brought our coffee. Clara stirred hers gently. Do you know what I hate most about you? I don't want to know, I said. She continued as if she hadn't heard me. You always have that perfect wife facade. Gentle, magnanimous, dignified. Caleb's mother praises you. The other wives on base praise you. Even Caleb says you're wife material. She looked up, her eyes finally showing a flicker of hatred. But why you? I knew him first. I was with him at his lowest. I celebrated his first award with him. The year his father passed, I was the one who stayed up all night with him at the hospital. You just swooped in and got lucky. I looked at her. So you burned down my house. Her smile faltered. I didn't mean for it to get so big. At the next table, Rebecca's fingers paused. Clara continued. I just wanted to destroy the nursery. My breath caught. She stared at me, her voice dropping to a low hiss. I saw you buying baby things. Eleanor Vance, how dare you have his child? Caleb promised me he would always take care of me. If you had a baby, he would be tied to you forever. My fingers tightened around my cup. It was hot, but the heat couldn't quell the ice spreading through my heart. Clara, that was my child, and his. Her voice suddenly rose before she quickly hushed it. But he shouldn't have a child. If he has a child, he won't care about me anymore. I looked at her. So you used the temporary passcode he gave you, brought an accelerant, and set fire to the nursery. Her face changed. I didn't bring any accelerant. The fire marshal's report will prove otherwise. She gritted her teeth. Eleanor, don't think you've won. If you blow this up, Caleb will be affected too. His unauthorized return, him signing that paper for me, his interference in the case. What do you think the military will do to him? Those were his choices, I said. Clara laughed. You really are ruthless. I shook my head. I'm just no longer willing to bear the consequences for you two. She leaned forward, her voice like a venomous whisper. Believe it or not, if something happens to me tonight, Caleb will still blame you. I looked at her. You can try. She was stunned that I would say that. I picked up my bag and stood. Clara, I'm tired of your tears. Save them for the police. As I walked out of the coffee shop, I received a photo. It was a still from the parking garage security camera. On the day of the fire, Clara was taking a small red can out of her car. She wore a mask and a hat, but the pearl bracelet on her wrist was unmistakable. It was a birthday gift from Caleb. I forwarded the image to Rebecca, who replied, We also found the purchase record for the accelerant. A hardware store 3 miles from the complex. She paid cash, but the store's camera caught her. I closed my eyes. The evidence was all connected. Motive, action, result. It wasn't an accident. It was premeditated. That evening, Caleb came to my apartment building. The security guard called up, but I didn't let him in. 10 minutes later, he texted me. Clara saw you today. Yes, I replied. What did you two talk about? I looked at the screen and typed back 4 words. Wait for the police report. He called me immediately. I answered. His voice was heavy. Eleanor, her emotional state is very fragile right now. She said you provoked her, that you forced her to admit to setting the fire intentionally. I laughed. So you believed her again? He was silent. Caleb, I said. Have you ever noticed that every time you call me, it's not because I'm hurt, but because she's crying? The line was so quiet I could hear his breathing. I hung up. At 1 a.m., Clara posted on social media a photo of a hospital corridor. The caption, If my existence only brings pain to others, then maybe I should just disappear. 10 minutes later, Caleb called me again. I didn't answer. 20 minutes later, a text from Maya. Clara's in the ER. Wrist scratches. So superficial she bled less than I draw for a blood test. Caleb's with her. I looked at the message, feeling nothing. Rebecca then sent me a file. Security footage from the convenience store where Clara bought the razor blades. The timestamp was 20 minutes before she made her social media post. I replied, Save it. This time, her tears would be useless. Caleb was called in for questioning by his commanding officer and the JAG office 8 days after the fire. That same morning, I received a call. The man on the line, a Mr. Hess, had a steady voice. Miss Vance, we'd like to understand the circumstances surrounding Major Caleb Thorne's return from his training exercise. After the fire occurred, did you at any point request his urgent return? No, I said. Did you ask Miss Clara Jensen to contact him on your behalf? No. Did you ask him to falsify a family emergency to secure an immediate transport flight? I paused for 2 seconds. Absolutely not. Mr. Hess was silent for a moment. Would you be able to provide the relevant communication records? Yes. I sent him a screenshot of the, in the middle of an exercise, don't be dramatic, text exchange, along with the record of my unanswered calls. After sending it, I sat in the apartment living room, staring out the window for a long time. The thing Caleb was once most proud of was his discipline. He used to say a soldier couldn't be impulsive, couldn't let personal matters interfere with duty, couldn't let family affect the mission. That's why I never dared to bother him. Even when I had a fever in the middle of the night, I went to the hospital alone. Even when I was at risk of a miscarriage, I only dared to ask the doctor, afraid to distract him. But one phone call from Clara, and he came back. So the rules could be broken. It was just that I wasn't worth breaking them for. That afternoon, Caleb called me. I answered. His first words were, "The board contacted you." Yes. His voice was tense. "What did you tell them?" I let out a small laugh. "The truth." He was silent. "Are you scared?" I asked. "I'm not scared," he said, his voice low. "This situation is more complicated than you think. The emergency flight return? I thought both you and Clara were in serious trouble." "You thought Clara was in trouble," I corrected. "She told you I was having a meltdown at the precinct and was going to drive her to her death." I closed my eyes. "So you didn't even bother to call me to confirm." His voice was strained. At the time, you only believed her." I finished. The other end of the line went dead silent. "Caleb, I texted you that I was at the hospital. You told me not to be dramatic. Clara told you she was scared, and you took an emergency flight back. That is the truth." His breathing was heavy. "Eleanor, I didn't know you miscarried. And you didn't know the condo was my personal property. You didn't know Clara used a passcode you gave her. You didn't know she bought an accelerant. You didn't know she bought razor blades before cutting her wrist." I paused. "You didn't know anything, but you dared to draft a declination statement for me." The words hit him like a physical blow. He had no reply. In the evening, Rebecca brought new information. Technicians from the smart lock company had recovered a short video clip from the cloud. I sat up straight. The video was only 1 minute and 17 seconds long. It was from a corner security camera in the living room, which had automatically uploaded its last moments before being destroyed by the heat. In the footage, Clara, wearing a mask, took a small can from her bag. She walked toward the nursery. A few seconds later, she returned to the living room, holding a piece of paper. It was my ultrasound report, which I had left on the dining table. She stared at the report for a long time. Then, she tossed it into the fire. The last shot of the video was of her, standing at the door looking back one last time. There was no fear in her eyes, only satisfaction. I stared at the screen, my fingers ice cold. Rebecca said quietly, "This is critical. It proves she saw the pregnancy report and still proceeded with the arson." "Give it to the police," I said. Once the video was submitted, the nature of the case changed swiftly. Clara was no longer being investigated for simple arson, but for aggravated arson with intent. That night, Caleb came to my apartment. This time, he didn't ask the security guard to call. He just stood in the rain. Maya and I were going downstairs to get a food delivery when we saw him. Maya almost threw the delivery at him. "You have the nerve to show your face here?" Caleb didn't argue. He just looked at me, rain streaming down his face. "I saw the video." "And?" I said. His voice was low and raw. "She lied to me." I nodded calmly. "She's been lying to you for years." He looked up. "You knew all along?" "Not all along," I said. "Just sooner than you were willing to believe the truth." A pained look crossed his face. "Eleanor, I was wrong. Those words came too late. So late that my child never had the chance to hear them." I took a step back. "Caleb, your mistakes don't require my forgiveness." He reached for me, then stopped. "Then what should I do?" I looked at him, this man who was once so tall and dependable in my eyes, now looking lost and pathetic in the rain. But I felt no pity. cooperate with the investigation, and sign the divorce papers. His face went white. You really want a divorce? Is there no room for discussion? When you signed that statement to protect her, you already made a decision for me. I looked him in the eye. This time, I'm making the decision for myself. The day after Clara's hospitalization, a long, rambling post appeared online. The title was sensational. Will I be driven to suicide just for loving the wrong person? The article was anonymous, but anyone familiar with the situation could tell who wrote it. It claimed she had lost her father at a young age, lived a difficult life, and suffered from severe depression. It said she had only ever seen Caleb as a brother. It accused me of being jealous, of constantly humiliating her, forcing her to break down and admit to things she never did. It painted the fire as an accident, and me as a vengeful woman trying to destroy a poor, pitiful soul and an outstanding soldier. The comments section exploded. Some called me a wicked, scorned wife. Others said a military wife shouldn't be so petty. Someone even found my professional counseling page and said a therapist like me had no empathy. Maya angrily sent me screenshots. Eleanor, she definitely had someone post this. I just replied, save the link. Rebecca moved quickly, archiving the webpage as evidence and filing a complaint with the platform for defamation and false information. I didn't rush to issue a clarification. I knew Clara's greatest skill was muddying the waters. She wanted to turn an arson case into a love triangle, a crime into a tragedy, my suffering into her victimization. But this time, she forgot that evidence doesn't cry. That afternoon, the police called me in for further questioning. When I arrived, Caleb was there. He was sitting on a bench in the hallway, his phone open to that article. He stood when he saw me. I didn't post that. I know, I said. A flicker of light appeared in his eyes. I continued. But the old you would have believed it. The light died. In the interview room, an officer presented a new claim. Miss Jensen alleges that you subjected her to long-term verbal abuse, which led to her mental breakdown. Do you have a response to this? I took out my phone. This is the text she sent asking to meet me. This is the surveillance footage from the coffee shop. This is a witness statement from my lawyer who was present. And this is a contemporaneous record of her stating, I just wanted to destroy the nursery. After listening to the recording, where Clara's voice was crystal clear, I saw you buying baby things. How dare you have his child? I just wanted to destroy the nursery. The officer's expression grew grim. When I left the room, Caleb was standing by the door. He had clearly heard some of it. His face was ashen. She said those things? Yes. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I stopped. Tell you? So I could hear you say she was just feeling insecure? He fell silent. Just then, my phone rang. It wasn't Maya, but the ER receptionist. Miss Vance? A Miss Clara Jensen would like to see you. She says if you don't come, she'll refuse treatment. Before I could answer, Caleb frowned. In the past, hearing such a thing, he would have rushed over immediately. This time, he looked at me, as if waiting for my decision. Tell her I'm not a doctor, I said. The call ended. Caleb said quietly. She used to do that all the time, and I would always go. I know. He gave a bitter laugh. I'm only just realizing now that every time she had a crisis, it was exactly when you needed me most. I didn't respond. Some realizations don't deserve applause, because I was the one who paid the price. By evening, Clara's best friend had been summoned by the police. She was the one who posted the article. At first, she was defiant. But when she realized she could be charged with defamation and obstruction of justice, she handed over the entire chat history. In the messages, Clara's instructions were clear. Make me look pitiful. Focus on how Eleanor was jealous of me. Don't mention the nursery. Make everyone think she's just holding a grudge over a man. There was another line. As long as public opinion is on my side, Caleb will soften. When that chat log reached Caleb, he stood outside the military hearing room for a long time. That night, he sent me a text. I'm sorry. I glanced at it and deleted it. Not all apologies require a response. 2 days later, the official fire marshal's report was released. Point of origin: the junction of the carpet and curtains in the nursery. Cause of fire: external flame source igniting an accelerant. Electrical faults and accidental candle tipping were ruled out. On the same day, the parking garage footage, the hardware store footage, the smart lock records, and the cloud video formed an unbreakable chain of evidence. Clara Jensen was taken into custody. As she was being led away, she was still crying out for Caleb. Caleb, save me. I didn't mean to. I just love you too much. Caleb stood at the entrance of the precinct, his face ghostly white. He didn't rush forward to protect her this time, but he also had no right to turn back to me, because I had already mailed the divorce papers to his commanding officer. At the pre-trial conference with the district attorney, Clara's face was as white as paper. She sat opposite me, gauze wrapped around her wrist, her lawyer by her side. Caleb sat in the back row, attending as a related party. I didn't look at him. Rebecca sat next to me, laying out our documents one by one. The meeting began with the lead prosecutor presenting his findings. Based on site examination, the fire originated in the nursery of a 17th floor residence. Materials collected from the scene tested positive for accelerant components. Combined with surveillance footage, lock data, and purchase records, the preliminary conclusion is arson. Clara's lawyer immediately argued, "My client's mental state is unstable. She only intended to decorate the room that day and had no intent to commit arson." The prosecutor looked up. "Does decorating a room require bringing an accelerant?" The lawyer was silent. Rebecca submitted the first piece of evidence, the smart lock record, showing Clara entered 47 minutes before the fire using a temporary passcode shared from Caleb's phone. Caleb, in the back row, clenched his fists. Second evidence, parking garage footage of Clara taking the red can from her trunk. Third, hardware store footage of her buying the accelerant, a lighter and disposable gloves. The fourth piece of evidence was the cloud video. As it played, the room became deathly silent. Clara pouring liquid on the carpet. Clara seeing the ultrasound report. Clara staring at it, then lighting the fire. The moment the flames erupted on screen, Clara squeezed her eyes shut. Her lawyer went quiet. When the video ended, the prosecutor asked, "Miss Jensen, do you have anything else to add?" Clara shook her head, sobbing. "I didn't know she was pregnant. I really didn't know." I finally spoke. "You knew." All eyes turned to me. I presented the texts she had sent me. "I thought you and Caleb weren't planning on having kids yet. Are you buying those little clothes to trap him with a baby? If that place got dirty, do you think he would still want to live there?" As the text appeared on the screen, Clara began to tremble. "I was just guessing. I didn't know it was true." I didn't argue with her. I took the clear evidence bag from my purse, the bag with the scorched ultrasound report and the melted locket. I placed it on the table. My voice wasn't loud. "This is what I saved from the fire." The report clearly states, pregnancy, 9 weeks. The locket was a gift I was going to give Caleb after his exercise, along with the ultrasound. I looked at Caleb. He sat there, his eyes bloodshot, looking shattered. I didn't stop. The day of the fire, I called him. He didn't answer. I texted him that the new condo was on fire and I was at the hospital. He replied, "In the middle of an exercise. Don't be dramatic." The screenshot appeared on the screen. Someone in the room gasped. The next day, I continued, Clara called him. He came back on the first available flight, rushed to the precinct to draft a statement to drop the charges for her, and told me, "She's so kind. She would never do this intentionally." He told me not to be so aggressive. Caleb's head dropped low. Clara suddenly shrieked, "Stop talking." I looked at her. "Did you think about that when you were setting the fire?" She slammed her hands on the table, hysterical. "I didn't want to hurt the baby. I just wanted you to leave him. I just wanted to destroy that room." The moment she said it, her lawyer's face fell. The prosecutor immediately signaled for the stenographer to note it down. Clara realized what she'd done and covered her mouth, but it was too late. Caleb stood up, his voice so hoarse it was barely a whisper. "Clara, why?" Clara looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "Because you said you would take care of me for the rest of your life. You married her, and you were going to have a child with her. Then what was I supposed to be?" Caleb swayed on his feet. I watched this scene unfold, feeling no satisfaction, only a sense of belated absurdity. She was unhinged because he gave her false hope. He was in pain because he was finally seeing the cost. And what I had lost, no one could ever repay. After the conference, Rebecca immediately submitted supplementary materials. My medical evaluation, hospital records, an assessment of property damages, a claim for emotional distress, and the divorce papers. Caleb followed me to the door. "Eleanor." I stopped. His voice trembled. "Was it a boy or a girl?" I looked at him. "It doesn't matter anymore." His eyes were terrifyingly red. "How can it not matter?" "Because you don't have the right to know," I said. He froze, as if rooted to the spot. I handed him the divorce agreement. "Sign it." Caleb didn't take it. "I won't," I said calmly, "then I'll sue." He looked at me, and for the first time, His eyes showed real fear. Not fear of disciplinary action or his career, but the fear of me truly being gone from his life. But this fear came too late. So late that it no longer pained me to see it. Caleb started trying to contact me incessantly. Texts, calls, waiting outside my new office, my apartment. He no longer mentioned Clara. It was all, "Eleanor, let's talk. I know I was wrong. I want to make it up to you. Give me a chance." I didn't reply to a single message. Rebecca advised that if he continued to harass me, we could send a cease and desist letter. I told her not yet. Not because I was softening, but because I needed him to sign the papers. 3 days later, I agreed to meet him at Rebecca's law office. Caleb arrived early. He was wearing a black jacket and looked like he'd lost weight. He stood up the moment I walked in. "Eleanor." I sat across from him. Rebecca pushed the divorce agreement forward. "Mr. Thorne, please review this." Caleb didn't look at the papers. He only looked at me. "I want to talk to you alone for a few minutes first." "There's no need," I said. "There is." His voice was raw. 7 years together, 3 years of marriage. It can't end with just a document. I looked at him. "Then what do you want it to end with?" His throat worked. "I want to start over." I laughed. "Start over from where? From the day you brought Clara to our new home? Or the night you left me to give her medicine? Or the moment you signed that statement for her?" The color drained from Caleb's face. I opened a folder. It wasn't the divorce agreement. It was a timeline. Year 1 of our marriage, our anniversary. Clara had a fever. Caleb left our dinner to be with her at the hospital. Year 2, Christmas. Caleb's mother invited Clara for Christmas dinner. I was in the kitchen until midnight while she sat next to Caleb, eating shrimp he peeled for her. Year 3, my birthday. Caleb got a call from Clara saying she had a nightmare. Before he left, he told me, "You've always been so independent. She's different." I had written it all down. No tears, just dates, places, events, and outcomes. Caleb looked at the pages, his fingers trembling. "You remembered all of this?" "Yes," I said. "I just didn't used to keep score." He said quietly, "I thought you didn't mind." I looked up at him. "Caleb, you didn't think I didn't mind. You knew I minded, but you thought I would tolerate it." He closed his eyes, exposed. "You enjoyed my compliance," I continued, "and you enjoyed her dependence. You put me in the role of a wife to bear responsibilities, and you put her in the role of a specter to receive your devotion. It wasn't that you didn't know the boundaries. You just didn't think I would ever leave." The office was silent for a long time. Finally, Caleb picked up the agreement. When he got to the asset division, he frowned. "The compensation for the condo and the insurance payout all go to you, I have no objection. But the emotional and medical damages, that's not from you," I interrupted. "That's a separate civil suit against Clara. What you are responsible for is the portion related to your marital misconduct and the damages caused by your unauthorized actions on my behalf." Rebecca added, "Mr. Thorne, your signing of the declination statement and your misrepresentation of facts to investigators caused secondary harm to Miss Vance. We have records of all of this." Caleb's face was ashen. He said quietly, "I never meant to hurt you. But you did. Constantly." He held the pen but didn't sign. "If I sign this, we're really over." I looked at him. "If you don't, we're still over." That sentence made him freeze. Just then, his phone rang. The screen lit up with Clara's name. Caleb looked at the phone and didn't answer. It rang again, then a third time. He turned the phone off completely. He looked up at me, as if trying to prove something. But I just felt tired. "It's too late to turn your phone off now, Caleb." Redness rimmed his eyes. He knew. He picked up the pen and signed his name on the agreement. As he wrote the last letter, his hand was shaking violently. Rebecca took the papers. "We will assist in filing the paperwork and guiding you through the state's mandatory waiting period." Caleb stood. His voice was low and ragged. "Eleanor, can I go see the condo?" "No," I said. He gave a bitter smile. "It was our home too." "No," I looked at him. "From the day you gave Clara the passcode, it stopped being our home." He couldn't say another word. When I left the law office, the sky was heavy and gray. Caleb followed behind me. "I found something out." I didn't stop. Clara's claim that she couldn't have children because of me. It might have been a lie. I stopped. He held out an old medical record. Her injury back then, it wasn't an irreversible condition. She was lying to me the whole time. I looked at the paper but didn't take it. "That's between you and her." Pain filled Caleb's eyes. "Eleanor, she tricked me. I said calmly. But the one who hurt me was you. He froze. I turned and walked into the elevator. As the doors closed, he was still standing there, finally understanding that some doors, once closed, can't be reopened with a simple apology. The day Clara was formally indicted, it was pouring rain. I went to the courthouse to file some civil documents. On my way out, I saw Caleb's mother under the steps. She was holding an umbrella, her hair visibly grayer. She rushed over when she saw me. Eleanor. I stopped. Her eyes were red. As your mother in. As Caleb's mother, I was wrong, I didn't speak. She choked back a sob. I shouldn't have said that you could have other children. I went to the hospital later and asked the doctor. He said your condition was very dangerous that day. Eleanor, the Thorne family has wronged you. Rain hammered on her umbrella. I looked at her, remembering how she used to hold my hand and say, Caleb's work is demanding. You have to be more understanding. A woman's job is to hold the family together. I did hold it together. Until my home was burned to ash. She said quietly, Caleb has been disciplined. His post is being reassigned. He can't sleep. He's seeing a therapist. He really regrets it. And, I said. His mother looked taken aback. I finished for her. So you want me to come back and save him? Her expression was awkward. Not save. Husband and wife. What hurdle can't be overcome? Clara has paid the price. Caleb knows he was wrong. You two still have feelings for each other. Ma'am, I interrupted. Do you know what your biggest problem is? She stared at me. You always see my pain as just another hurdle on Caleb's path to maturity. Her lips trembled. I continued. My losing a child is the price for him to learn his lesson. My house burning down is the catalyst for you to see Clara's true colors. My suffering is always leveraged to pay for his growth. But I am not his whetstone. Tears streamed down her face. Please don't come looking for me again, I said, opening my own umbrella and walking away. She called after me. That child. That was my grandchild, too. I paused for a fraction of a second but didn't turn back, so they should remember even more clearly who it was that protected the killer. Her cries were drowned out by the rain. As I reached my car, I saw Caleb standing across the street. He had obviously heard everything. His face was grayer than the rainy sky. I didn't cross. He didn't either. This time, what separated us wasn't just a road. It was a child who never was, a home burned to the ground, and 3 years of a marriage steeped in disrespect. Clara's case moved quickly. Her lawyer's attempt to argue for a psychiatric evaluation was denied when the results showed she was of sound mind and fully criminally responsible. She then changed her story, claiming she only meant to scare me and had no intention of letting the fire spread. But the cloud video showed she never called 911. After the fire started, she waited downstairs for 2 minutes, only leaving after she saw smoke billowing from the window. Those 2 minutes shredded her defense. Caleb, as the one who provided the passcode and signed the initial agreement, also underwent a more thorough investigation. He hadn't participated in the arson, but his unauthorized return during a military exercise, his failure to report the true situation, and his interference in a local police matter had caused a significant scandal. The disciplinary action came down. Maya sent me the news. Reassigned from original post. Official demerit. Promotion suspended. I looked at the words and felt no joy. Just the quiet finality of dust settling. Caleb had always valued his career above all else, so much so that my feelings always had to make way for it. Now, it was finally his turn to bear the consequences himself. A week before the state's mandatory waiting period for the divorce ended, Caleb asked to see me one last time. I refused. So he waited downstairs from my new office. My new studio hadn't officially opened yet. The walls were freshly painted, and the air smelled of new wood. When I went downstairs, he was standing by the door, holding a box. It's the baby locket. I glanced inside. The box held a new one, shiny and gold, engraved with the same 4 words, peace and joy. I didn't take it. I know the original one can't come back, he said. Caleb, I cut him off. Don't try to replace an old wound with something new. His eyes reddened. I dream about that nursery every night. So do I said. His voice trembled. Then why can't we? Because you dream of a loss, I said, looking at him. I lived it. He froze. I turned and went inside. From behind me, he asked quietly, will you hate me for the rest of your life? I paused. No. A flicker of hope rose in his eyes. Hate takes energy, I said. I don't want to spend any more of my energy on you. The door closed. This time, I didn't hear him follow. The day of the divorce, the weather was beautiful. Sunlight warmed the steps of the county clerk's office. Caleb was there before me. He was wearing a white shirt, holding his documents, standing perfectly straight. Just like the day we came here to get our marriage license. He had stood just like that then, too. Only on that day my heart was full of joy, believing I was marrying a man I could depend on. Now, I just wanted to remove my name from his life. At the window, the clerk asked the routine question. Are both parties entering into this divorce voluntarily? I am, I said. Caleb was silent for 2 seconds. The clerk asked again. He said in a low voice, I am. The sound of the stamp was quiet, but it was like a door closing for good. When we received our divorce certificates, Caleb stared at his for a long time. I put mine in my bag and stood up. He followed me out. Eleanor, I stopped. He stood in the sunlight. His eyes red. Will I ever hear from you again? There's no need, I said. If you ever need help, I won't call you. He gave a bitter smile. You won't even offer me empty pleasantries anymore. I looked at him. Caleb, pleasantries are for strangers. His face went white. I took out my phone and, for the last time, opened our chat. I deleted the shared location, the linked devices, the shared photo albums. I cleared his name from the top of my contacts and removed him as an emergency contact. Each action was like pulling a thorn from my body. It hurt, but only after the pain could the wound heal. Caleb watched my fingers move, his voice wrecked. I used to be that important to you. You were, I said. Tears welled in his eyes. And now? I locked my phone. Now you're not. I turned and walked down the steps. He didn't follow. As I reached my car, I glanced back. Caleb was still standing there, clutching his divorce certificate, as if he was finally understanding what he had lost. I felt no pity. As I drove away from the clerk's office, Maya texted me. The flower arrangements for the new studio have arrived. Get back here for the ribbon cutting. I smiled. I sold the burned-out condo as is. With that money, the insurance payout, the civil settlement, and my own savings, I leased a commercial space and opened the Haven Center for Psychological Aid. The first room was no longer a nursery. I made it into a women's lounge. Soft sofas, clean bookshelves, and a pot of sunflowers by the window. There was no wedding portrait on the wall, just a single sentence. You can always choose to begin again. On opening day, Mrs. Gable came. She held my hand, her eyes red. Eleanor, your mother would be so proud. I nodded. I think so too. Rebecca brought a bouquet of white lisianthus. Maya carried a box of cupcakes, declaring she would be the first to sign up for a membership. Sunlight streamed through the windows. The once blackened walls were gone, but I knew the fire had happened. It burned away my marriage, my illusions, and the last of my hopes for Caleb Thorne. And from the ashes, it forged a new path. Clara was eventually sentenced to prison. Caleb did not attend her final hearing. I heard he requested a transfer to a remote, low-profile post. His mother texted me once, Eleanor, before he left, Caleb stood outside your studio all night. I didn't reply. She never texted again. 6 months later, I received a notification from the bank that the court-ordered restitution had been deposited. It was a long number. I glanced at it and put my phone down. Money could be repaid. A home could not. A child could not. The long, lonely night in the ER, staring at a diagnosis of no fetal heartbeat, could not. But at least it proved one thing. Harm cannot be erased with a simple, I didn't mean it. And those who do wrong cannot get away with it just by crying. That night, as I closed the studio, I placed the small, melted locket in a glass box. It was no longer evidence, no longer just a wound. It was a reminder that a small life had briefly been here, and a reminder that I had walked out of that fire. Maya asked me if I would ever believe in love again. I thought for a moment, maybe. She looked at me, surprised. I smiled. But I will never again hand myself over for someone else to keep. I turned off the lights. The sign for the Haven glowed in the darkness. As I drove away, my rearview mirror was empty. No Caleb, no Clara, no Thorne family. Just a road ahead, growing clearer and clearer. I didn't look back.